Sun shining down your way in Halifax. All right, let's kick it off. Let's get rid of the music for today. It was fun though. Well, it lasted. It was fun. All right, folks, I'm very excited. Welcome back. Hi Mama Helps webinar. We're talking today a little bit more about foundations for fine motor development. Very excited in a couple of minutes to bring our special guest on. And before we do, a couple of the housekeeping pieces as always. So if you've never joined us before, please, please, please don't take offense. I am not legal or financial advice. I'm the last person you probably want to seek in that extent anyways. But if you're looking for anything today, the idea around our webinars is we want you to take away great tips, tricks, techniques, things you can implement in your classroom. Obviously, we don't want to put you in a situation where, you're looking at anything legal or financial issue-wise. On the same side, though, if you are looking for someone, please obviously seek out the right support, whether that's a financial advisor, legal advisor, your licensing rep, whoever that may be. Just make sure that you're talking to the right people before you make any changes that you're not 100% sure about. Okay. Next up, we're going to jump into our land acknowledgement here. So give a quick listen.
Hi Mama acknowledges that our main headquarters is situated in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto itself is a word that originates from the Mohawk word takaranto, meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. As participants and guests in today's webinar, we are coming together from many different places around the world. We encourage you to learn about and acknowledge the land from which you participate.
And we're also just going to jump into our diversity inclusion statement.
Hi Mama is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment for our employees, customers, and community. Hi Mama welcomes and celebrates individuals of all backgrounds, orientations, and identities. Our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee aims to ensure we provide a safe environment for everyone to thrive while bringing their authentic selves to work. Our mission is to promote an inclusive workspace for all employees through education, discussion, and celebration of our differences. Embracing these differences while coming together with a common purpose is what makes our team extra special.
Before we jump into all the fun stuff of today, as always, folks, the entire session is being recorded. So if for any reason you have to jump off midway, hopefully you don't, but if you do, we understand. That's what happens these days. Please, please, please don't fret. We will get the recording out to you early next week. It will all be available on our blog post page. As well, if you need some closed captions, you can hit the CC tab, but we're also recording with that on so that this way, if you do need a little bit of extra, you like it, whatever you fancy, it's there for you. Now, next up, certificates. As always, for those who are attending the live session, please do watch your inbox over the next couple of days, probably, tomorrow, early next week there, they will be coming to you, so don't fret there, as well as the show notes. Once again, they'll all be sent out, recording and everything will be made available to you. So just keep your eyes out. Early next week is typically the best place to go. And last up, if you're having any connection issues, especially with Zoom, please do seek support.zoom.us for any help. They know their product the best, and they're the ones who can help you at the best if you're having any issues, okay? Next up, if you've never joined us before, well, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm Ria. I'm one of the community ambassadors here at Hi Mama. I'm also an early childhood educator. I worked just about 7 years in the classroom, and I'm joined by my colleague Kaya on the chat. I'm going to have Kaya join us here. My fun fact for today, I think the only thing fun I really, really have is that I am very excited to be getting my first dose of vaccine on Sunday, actually. So it's a big step for me. Kaya, you have a fun fact. I've been waiting since you've told me, hoping you were going to tell me before, but
I do. I just realized this Hi Mama hat is way too small for my head too. It's like giving me a headache already. Okay, so my fun fact is I just had watermelon for the first time since like last summer, because watermelon's almost in season in Toronto here. Super excited. But if you've been with us for a while, you'll remember that I have a fun fact about watermelon. I put salt on it. And I know that sounds so wild, but don't knock it till you try it. It actually makes it sweeter. And I remember when I said this fun fact last year that the whole chat blew up, like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, or that's disgusting. So yeah, that's just my fun fact today is I had watermelon. And if you are a fan of salt on watermelon, try it. Also, another food related thing. It's a TikTok trend. If you take cucumber, like fresh cucumber, and you dip it in sugar, it almost tastes like watermelon. So now I'm like, is watermelon just sweet cucumber? Like my mind is blown. So if you tried either sugar on cucumber or salt on watermelon, just try it. Trust me, it's delicious. I'm going to be talking in the chat about all my love for food and watermelon. So thanks, everyone.
I love it, Kai, and it's so true. This is something I learned from you, and I actually have never never got to try it at this point. Okay, before we jump in and do our special guest, we're going to do our quick poll for the day here. Let's get this up. Our question of the day. Just want to get to know a little bit about who's joining us, and a little bit more about what you do for activity planning and sourcing and lesson planning. I'd love to know. I'm not going to lie, for myself, it was a combination probably of social media, so Pinterest, those sorts of things, as well as any potential magazines, just things I could just like rip a page out of and keep. Of course, I'm not going to rip it out of somebody else's. I would ask first, but the same side, those were probably my two. And third, probably followed by blog posts. Those were like my top three, kind of ranked as well. And as Kaya, I'm sure you're in the chat at this point, but lots of great combos coming through on the food source. So some great ones. I've seen pineapple apparently and salt, folks. That's apparently one to give a try as well. So all right, to give you guys an idea, we roughly around 60% here are teachers. Fantastic to have you all. We won't keep you too long here today. And most of you are talking social media, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, those sorts of things. Fantastic way, folks. One more second here and we're gonna end the poll. Not to worry. I am the mayonnaise on French fries as well. There, Deborah, I am the mayonnaise on French fries. Thank you so much for participating in the poll here with us today, folks. That was fantastic. I'm gonna bring her on. If you missed her last time, you missed a fantastic webinar. Stacey, please do join us. We have Stacey Band joining us from Home Day Hero. I have to say it slowly, otherwise it kind of jumbles up for me. But she's not only founder, parent, coach, Masters of Public Administration. You got a lot going on behind you, Stacey. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again today. Maybe before we dive into the fun stuff, maybe tell us a little bit about you, a little bit more about Home Day Hero.
Hi, everybody. Great to be back. Kaya, Ria, thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun last time, and I have lots of fabulous ideas and tips and tricks to share with you today, all about fine motor development and how do we develop those skills in our children. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Michigan, just about 30 minutes over the Windsor border, actually. So nice to be joining all of you that are here in the States, overseas, and in Canada as well, of course. And a little bit about Home Day Hero. As Ria was just saying, Home Day Hero does a lot of different things to support families and teachers and children. And the whole idea is, as people who make a difference in the lives of children, there are so many different ways that we can connect with these children in ways that are meaningful, in ways that are helpful. And so the idea behind Home Day Hero is to provide these tips and tricks to better your everyday lives. Whether you're in the classroom or you have your own children at home, or maybe you're joining us because you're a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, or you have children in your life for one reason or another. So glad to be here and super excited to get started. Fun fact, since I heard we were doing that,
We are.
I went strawberry picking for the first time on Mother's Day.
Ooh.
Apparently, my children love to go strawberry picking. In 45 minutes, we picked 9 pounds of strawberries.
You're going to be eating them forever, Stacey, ever.
So if anybody has any good strawberry-based recipes, I'm in the market for a few.
I love it. Folks, before we jump in with Stacey and before we have fun, any questions that you may have that we may not get to, we're going to jump over to the Facebook page after, and we'd love to see if you want to post that question. Stacey will be there to answer that for you, so please don't be shy. We're going to make sure it's posted right at the top, I believe, right, Kaya? So it will be pinned up there for you to see, so you don't have to worry about trying to find it. But I'm going to stop. I'm going to hand it over to you, and because at the end of the day, they come for you, Stacey. They don't come for me. So I'm going to shush up, get on the ball here, just hit me up and I'll be on and off. So don't be shy, folks. I'm here as well as Kaya's on chat, but Stacey.
Thanks so much. So I will say, just as last time, I am not personally going to be on the chat during my presentation. I want to do my very best to stay focused and provide you with the very best information that I can. But I do know that Ria and Kaya are watching that chat, and they will give me a shout if there's a question that needs to be answered right away. So, like I said, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to be here. And here are the takeaways for today. So, in order for children to write, they have to know how to use their hands. And an interesting thing that I learned when I was working in the classroom, I did work in the classroom for 8 years, and I was an administrator for 3, and I was responsible for training staff and obviously working closely with families and children. And the thing is, many families come from all over the world in my program where I was. And because of various cultural differences, there were sometimes when children would come into the environment and they wouldn't know how to use their hands. I know it sounds wild, but what I came to find was that because of certain cultural differences that exist, for some young children, we'll say 2 and younger, most everything is done for them. And so as a result, they don't have a lot of opportunities to use their own hands to, pull up their pants or their own hands to brush their hair. And so as a result, they would come into the school setting and we would literally be starting from the beginning. How could they use their hands? And so I will dive in today with how we can overcome some of those sort of challenges, which I do know exist for some children. And then, in order for children to coordinate the functions of their hands, they must strengthen their hands and fingers through tactile experiences. So, the tactile experiences piece is so important, giving children the opportunity to touch things that feel different and allowing them to become comfortable with that, whether it's fabrics or things like sand or Play Doh. And we'll dive into that shortly as well. And the third piece is hands on experiences, because they are the things that really create these mind body connections and serve as the foundation for future learning. And so, in a funny sort of way, the more things we can do with our hands, the more things that our minds are able to do. I know Montessori had a quote. I hope I don't splice it. And basically, what it was is never give more to the mind than you can give to the hand. And it's just that idea that by providing something physical in hand, children are able to learn more, learn better, because they have that connection to whatever the object or the activity is. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. Next slide. All right, so we're going to talk a bit about types of activities that are going to encourage hand strengthening, because if we want our children to be able to write and have that really great fine motor control, then we need to teach them how to use their hands. And so while I know you can't see exactly what I have going on my table over here, I have a lot of fabulous examples for things that I have here in my own home that I absolutely love for children, not just my own children, but things that I had in the classroom as well. So the first one here is sensory based and art related. So the whole idea is by speaking to our children's senses, we can kind of spark excitement within them. We call them points of interest. And so the idea is that if we can provide them with these kinds of experiences, then they will feel more connected to the activity. Art related activities are fabulous. They really provide the opportunity for creativity. And I will talk about that more later as well. And then activities that involve hand eye coordination. So, the awesome thing about hand eye coordination is that this can be accomplished through any activity where the child has to move objects from one place to another. And I have lots of great examples for that too. And then, of course, everyday experiences. I know early on I had mentioned the child that did not know how to brush their hair because they had not had that experience yet. And so, providing everyday experiences, even if it's something as simple as hair brushing or teeth brushing, are fabulous as well. And of course, utensils for eating, which I have some examples of as well. Next slide, please. Perfect. So, where we're going to start is the sensory based and art related. And I feel like this is just totally my jam because, well, first, I'm a big kid and I love to play. But beyond that, um, so here are the five things that I love the most. And the reason why I love these activities the most is because they are great for children of all ages. So, what you want to do is think about the children in your care and one, of course, how old are they? And two, what are they capable of doing? Because we don't want to provide anything that's going to be an inherent choking hazard, of course. And so when we think about things like Play Doh, I'll show you some of the examples that I have. I really like having a variety of containers for my Play Doh. Some of it is indeed homemade. Homemade is like the best. I'm sorry. It's my favorite. And so some of these containers obviously are different sizes. And so by providing different sizes, you're encouraging the children to use their hands in ways that might be a little different. Ones that are larger, like even bigger than this container, they might have to hold it with one hand and then use the other hand to pull. And so the idea is by providing a variety of containers, it provides them with good practice. And so I have two kids in my house, so I usually have a lot of variety in that I usually don't set out two of the exact same one. I like to set out a variety, like I said, sorry. And then, of course, when it comes to things like rolling pins, it's really nice to be able to have a couple different sizes. And the reason why is because when you think about a rolling pin, this is like a child size, but a medium size one, it's the whole hand is going to wrap around that handle. And so they're going to be working that whole hand with the rolling piece, holding on nice and tight, which is really good for strengthening their hands. And then when you look at this teeny tiny one, just so cute. It's very small. It's almost like not doll size, but you get the idea. It's going to be more of like the pincer grasp. So you're already diving into that fine motor component because they can't physically put their whole hand on it. It won't work. They have to find their pincer grasp or a few fingers even to be able to roll it properly. So those are some of my favorite things with Play-Doh. And then of course, cookie cutters. There's so many different kinds of cookie cutters that are available. And so you can get ones that are small, ones that are large, ones that nest. And the idea is you can really expound upon that. And so Play Doh, number one for me for sure. Sand play is a close number two. I know, don't call me crazy. The thing is with sand play is that it can get messy. And so what I personally like to do, and we've been playing with sand the entire lockdown, the entire pandemic. And the reason why is because I have it in this super cute bin. You can pick up a bin anywhere. And the goal is that everything stays in the bin as best as possible. So you can see I just have a little bin here. It's not super full. It has a manageable amount of sand in it. And then inside, I've added some things that are really cute, but the kids love them and it's not too many. So you can see I have just some little objects here that are perfect for filling and pouring and dumping and stacking to make little sandcastles. And then like a little tool that they can use. And so everything is self-contained. And so the idea is basically that they can enjoy the activity without the big mess. Because you know how kids get. They're going to make a mess no matter what, but anything we can do to kind of mitigate the mess is good. So what I do also offer is a small dustpan and a small brush. And the reason why is because inevitably there will be a spill or some sort of situation that's going to require a little cleanup. And so with the dustpan and brush, the child is able to also use their hands and their hands-eye coordination in order to clean up after themselves. And so one of my favorite phrases is, the sand stays in the bin. Remember, the sand stays in the bin. And that seems to help sometimes. um, the other thing here is painting. I love painting because it provides for a very creative experience. And, you know, all of these activities do, but painting, it's like the colors are just a lot of fun. And you can use different size brushes, you know, different, not just the actual brush itself, but the handle on the brush can be different sizes. So, you know, if you have a young child, let's say 2 or younger, you're going to get those really thick handles so that it can be a whole hand sort of situation. And then, of course, with painting and maybe older children, children that could be 3 to 5 or 4 to 6, like a thinner brush. So you want to go from thicker to thinner so that it encourages them to almost hold it the same way that they would hold a pencil. So it's going to train their hand and their mind in order to be able to properly hold a pencil. And then the other thing with painting is you can use objects from nature. We've done a number of those kinds of paintings, not only here at home, but when I was in the school setting as well. And the idea is that they can get branches and leaves and flowers and sticks, and they can use all of those things for painting as well. And so it kind of encourages a like really sensorial sort of experience. So they have to do a little bit of a scavenger hunt to find the things they're going to use for their painting project. I do know that when I did start using watercolor paints in the classroom, what I really loved was when you would take just one little tiny pot of paint from the palette that comes in the package, just one, and put it in in a little dish and allow the child to explore using different kinds of brushes, but only one color paint. And so it's just getting used to the idea of how to use the paint more so than having to get used to the idea of using the paint and not mixing the colors. Right? Because I always end up mixing the colors. And then drawing with chalk. Drawing with chalk is a lot of fun, especially if you add a touch of water. So when we would do summer camp on a hot day, we would bring out like a little dish that had water on it and the chalk, and we would actually get the chalk wet and we would do chalk paint. Or sometimes the children would smash the chalk a little bit, and then we would bring out paintbrushes and they would be able to paint with the chalk and the water paint mixture, which was a lot of fun too. So using child safe scissors, I do know that there are a number of different kinds of scissors that are made for children who are very young, like younger than 2. And those are ones that are like the whole hand. Um, I'm not a huge fan of those for 2 reasons. One, it's awkward to hold. And 2, the blades tend to be kind of sharp, sharper than typical child safe scissors. And so I would just say be mindful of the scissors that you choose and make sure that the scissors that you choose are safest for the age group that you're working with. What I love about using scissors is there are so many different types of lines that children can cut. So initially, you might just have, strips of paper that the child can kind of snip. An activity that I saw that I thought was really interesting is having a big bowl full of like torn tissue paper, and children are able to use the scissors in the bowl to cut the tissue paper into confetti, basically. So just a little spin on using child safe scissors. And then the other thing is not just snipping just on a blank sheet of paper or a little strip of paper, but I love putting lines, like diagonal lines, X's, curvy lines, um, different like dashed lines, and even, of course, moving on to shapes. And so just the idea of giving children a nice variety of opportunities to use scissors to further develop their fine motor. Next slide, please. So, wonderful options for teaching children independence and giving them the ability to create something. So, I know that in the time that we were home on lockdown, it was probably about 4 months straight. We did a ton of sensory based and art related activities. And the reason why is because it was like food for the soul. And we just really enjoyed having a lot of different opportunities for the sand play, for chalk, for Play Doh, because it allowed us to be creative. We were here, we were at home, it was just the 4 of us. And so to be able to create a sand castle, even though we're not at the beach this year, or to be able to create an imaginary restaurant with our different colors of Play Doh was just a lot of fun for the kids and a lot of fun for us as adults too. And so giving us the opportunity to have fun and create something. The other thing is all of these activities are considered pre-writing experiences. And the reason for that is because you are working to develop that child's whole hand. And as children are given opportunities to manipulate different types of materials, they are strengthening their hand and their fingers. And so when I was a teacher and parents at school would say, I'm noticing, my son or daughter, they're not really writing yet. What should we do? And my answer was art. Any kind of art project. And the reason why is because it's fun and exciting, and the children don't realize that as they are having these fabulous experiences and creating something fun and beautiful, they're actually helping their bodies. And that's like one of the most amazing things I would say about the opportunity to work with children is we have the opportunity to shape them and how they can become based on the activities we present. And so the more opportunities we can provide um, to explore, the better. So I know here at home, not only did we have our sand toys in the sandbox, but we also have, I love this. This is recycled. Don't mind me. This container, which is like an added layer because we have to hold it with two hands and then open it. And inside, my son has two trucks. He really likes to use them with the sand toys because dump truck, but they're meant to be used with a Play-Doh. There's like a special kit that he has where he can grind it, and the Play-Doh kind of falls into the dump truck, and then the steamroller flattens it out. But he likes to use it with sand, and I don't stop him because it's an opportunity that is available to him, and it's something that we allow here in our home. And so I would say just knowing what your expectations are regarding the materials is also really important. Because if you are going to have something out, but you don't want it to mix, like for example, a whisk, I don't really want the kids using a whisk with sand or with Play Doh. I do want them using it with water and bubbles, though, or with colored water. And so just making sure the children know like what the expectation is, and being able to stick with that. I know that helps a lot here in my house. So the more opportunities that children are given to develop their fine motor skills and strengthen their hands, the more likely they'll be able to exhibit control with things like eating, dressing themselves, and doing other activities that require utensils. So, going back to the first example that I started to share regarding the student that came into the classroom and did not know how to use their hands, what we started doing was providing that child with an opportunity to use Play Doh every single day. And so, he'd come into the classroom, we would settle up his things, and then we would say, do you want to play with green Play Doh or blue Play Doh? And so he would have this opportunity to play with the Play Doh. And at first, he just kind of looked at the Play Doh because he didn't feel like he knew what he was supposed to do with it. And so what we ended up doing was giving him examples. This is how you squeeze the Play Doh. This is how you press the Play Doh. This is how you squash the Play Doh. This is how you roll the Play Doh. This is how you make nice thin strips with the Play Doh. And so just giving him different opportunities to explore. And so every day he would have this opportunity, and we wouldn't throw like all of those ideas at him all at once. It was like, once a week, we would say, oh, have you tried poking the Play-Doh? So that way he didn't feel overwhelmed, but he would have a new experience with it. And then we would introduce cookie cutters and the rolling pins. And so he was having a lot of different opportunities to explore with this Play-Doh as he was starting to figure out how to use his hands. And it was a process. It took time. But once he realized that, like, how his fingers moved and like how his hands could open and close and just how strong he could be, he was able to do a lot more things. He was able to start feeding himself, which he was not able to do before. He was able to start zipping up his coat. We would put the zipper in the guide and he'd be able to pull the tab. So he was able to start to do a lot more things. And then, of course, that translated into being able to, hold on to a shirt to be able to take it off, or being able to fit his foot into his shoe and figure out how to pull the strap. And so the skills and abilities were, directly translated from that one activity of utilizing Play-Doh every day for a period of time to being able to actually function independently. Now, I do know when it does come to things like Play Doh and sand right now, some schools and some jurisdictions are following specific protocols as related to the virus, et cetera. And so I know at my daughter's school, they receive their own like small container, like maybe it's the size with a little bit of Play Doh in it. And there might be like a single cookie cutter and maybe like a few objects in there. So maybe it would be like something like if it's blue Play-Doh, maybe it would be a shark and a stingray. And so just the idea that it can be individualized if that's what your center calls for, if that's the protocol that you need to follow. And so I know that my daughter has loved having her own personal Play-Doh in her special tote that she has at her table with her. So um, yeah, that's my little story about my friend. I met him when he was 2. He's easily 12 now. He's fabulous, and you would have never have known that he struggled to know how to use his hands when he was a wee child. um, but I would say that Play-Doh definitely was huge in his ability to be successful in the classroom, which was amazing. Next slide, please. All right. So the importance of hand-eye coordination. So why provide activities that are going to involve hand-eye coordination? And I would say that open-ended play, as you can see, freedom of movement. So just this idea that we don't have to hop on one foot. It's not hopscotch. It's something that is more open-ended. And so, by giving children the opportunities to play with things like sand and Play Doh, it gives them the opportunity not to have to worry that they're doing it wrong. And so, I know that some children, they come into our classrooms or they come into our spaces and they're worried that they're going to do it wrong, they're going to get it wrong. And so, just the idea that as long as we remember the Play Doh is for our hands or the sand is for our hands and not our mouths, then it's a great experience. And so they are able to have that freedom to play and be, which is really, really nice. I feel like because of the way society is right now, there are a lot more, limitations in place. And as a result, giving children, these kinds of opportunities, I feel like kind of lifts up the spirit. I know my kids, they're 2 and 5, and they have returned to school and they are masked the whole day. And knowing that kind of limit is in place, that limitation is there, I feel like it's important to kind of like make up for interactions in other ways, right? Because like you can't necessarily see their faces or their exact emotions, but being sure to verbalize more. So I know this is a little off topic, but like, for example, um, I know that this one student that I work with to teach reading, he actually, sorry, he actually had asked me a question about wearing my mask. And I just said to him, we wear a mask to keep our bodies safe. And um, when we are at home with our own families, we take our masks off. And I just said, I'm really glad you asked me that question. And so just providing that feedback, I think, is so important. And so when I see that a child is creating something so cool or working so hard, even though it is open-ended play and there might not be a right and a wrong, providing that feedback, I think right now especially is so important. Just letting children know that they are seen and they are heard. I see that you created a sandcastle. How did you do it? And allowing them to hear the excitement in your voice, even though they might not be able to see your beautiful smile. So free use of both hands, which I believe we've discussed well, and then just developing that bilateral coordination and crossing midline. They do say in science that children who are able to cross midline, bring their right hand across to the left side of the body and left hand across to the right side of the body, it shows that their brain is firing the way that it needs to. And so opportunities, I think right now it might be a little bit challenging, but opportunities that provide children with that sort of a situation. So we used to have a box that was full of different kinds of beans, and there would be different things hidden in the beans. Maybe it was little pom poms or little objects, and they would need to reach across to get whatever they needed. And so that opportunity was there. And I do think that right now we do have to be a little bit more creative about ways to promote crossing midline and hand-eye coordination as it relates to fine motor and how we're using our hands and our bodies. And of course, hand-eye coordination activities promote concentration. I feel like when I was in the Montessori classroom, concentration, coordination, independence, and order, those four things were so critical in developing children's, primary skills in a lot of these practical life-based experiences. Next slide, please. So, 5 hand eye coordination activities. So, these are the kinds of activities that are easily and or likely available in most of your environments. Obviously, there are many of you here, my gosh, and I don't know that for certain, but I feel like I selected a list that would not be only specific to Montessori schools or any one particular kind of modality. So, building with blocks is great. And I like having a variety of sizes. So, in our home, we actually have three different sizes of blocks. We have really big blocks that are like life size blocks that really involve, like the whole body to carry them across and to lift them and stack them. But then we also have, smaller magnetic blocks that are very interesting. And then in addition to that, Legos. So just different ways that blocks can be utilized to encourage children to be creative. So when I'm thinking about building with blocks, my kids oftentimes will say, I'm building a castle. No, I'm building a car. And so allowing them to use their imagination, but in the meanwhile, they're also participating in these hand eye coordination based activities. Dressing dolls. We have dolls here at home. We have dolls that are boys and dolls that are girls and dolls that are different ethnicities and dolls with different professions and all kinds of clothes and accessories. And just this idea of being able to care for another being, another person, even if it's imaginary. And so by allowing children the opportunity to dress dolls, they are actually inherently kind of practicing what they themselves are learning, right? So when you think about putting, a pair of pants on a doll, oh, we're going to put one leg in and then the other. And so there's just this idea that hand-eye coordination is right there. And they're also able to practice this very practical skill. Building with trains and tracks. I love building with trains and tracks. And the reason why is because you can build a different track every time. And so if you think about the kinds of trains and tracks you might have in your space, there was a time where the only track I had out was a straight line. There was a time where the track that I had out was only curved pieces, so it would make a circle. Then there was another time where I brought out ramps, like the tracks that have, pieces that provide for a ramp. And so just the idea of even if you have a limited number of resources, and even if you do not, do not have a large train set, it doesn't matter. You can still work with what you have. And so what I did is we only had one train set and I just kind of parsed it. And so I kept it interesting by changing it out over the course of time. And so, of course, he would return to it and he would get that dose of hand eye coordination. And then playing an instrument, my gosh, we love playing the drum around here. We have a djembe. And every once in a while, when my son is like, oh, he's into hitting sometimes, and so I say, oh, it looks like you want to do some hitting. Where's the djembe? And so he'll start drumming. And so that is also really great for just whole hand control. And then of course the idea of a piano, just being able to move the individual fingers. I think, is it Melissa and Doug? I think they have like a mini one that's pretty cute. And then there's even the idea of like a small like classroom keyboard even for the sake of moving hands. If a little bell piano is too much, takes up too much space. And then of course throwing and catching balls, different size balls, of course. So you might have, your basketball sized, your little like ball pit size, and then something in between. And so just this idea of being able to throw and catch balls and what that means for how our hands have to function. Next slide, please. All right, so the role of practical life experiences. Why are everyday practical life experiences important? So for me and for most teachers, I would say um, it makes sense to figure out what is the goal and kind of work backwards. So, for example, for the child that I had shared about earlier, who was learning how to use his hands, if my end goal was for him to be able to eat independently, then what I would likely do is I would provide some sort of experience in the classroom where he could do some scooping. So, for example, I have my quarter cup. I chose a quarter cup instead of a whole cup because um, I feel like, how do I put it? It's kind of like like a control of error sort of thing, right? So if I have a bin that is this size and I put a quarter cup scoop in there, the likelihood is when I go to put that quarter cup scoop in there, the beans are gonna fall out as I lift the scoop out, right? But if I use a quarter cup, then we don't have that sort of problem. And so just kind of matching the materials appropriately so that you don't create opportunities for those errors that children are sometimes worried about. And so, anyways, so for this child, I would provide him with a scoop and I would probably provide like a couple of bowls and allow the opportunity to scoop from one bowl to the next. And I always would start with something that is whole, like a bean or large beads or gems or something like that. Nothing that would be too much of a choking hazard, of course. And then what I would do is once I had seen success with that sort of activity, I would switch it over to be water. And so we could scoop water. And then the cool thing is with water is funnels. And so the idea that you can provide for another opportunity, which could be scooping and pouring in one, and allowing that to be a fun activity. Another thing would be something like if you think about, so this particular child, I was trying to figure out how can we get him to eat independently? Like he would barely like just pick up food with his fingers to eat it. And so what we started to do was provide lots of opportunities for different kinds of utensils. So maybe like an over exaggerated sort of spoon like this, it's silicone, it's nice and soft, it feels good on the hands. And so that's good, for moving things around, for scooping, different sorts of activities. And then also, when it came to eating, um, encouraging his family to send in spoons like these. And the reason why is because they've got that nice thick handle. And because they have that nice thick handle, it's going to encourage the whole hand. And then with something like this, it's getting a little bit thinner. And so it's going to encourage more pincer grasp for spooning. The other thing is pouring. So one of the things we would offer in the classroom was the opportunity to drink milk and water. And so they would have to pour. And so usually we would use a pitcher that was glass that had a lid on the top. For the sake of today's webinar, I'm showing you one that's got a silicone handle that's very thick, that's super great for pouring. And so for this child who was just learning, I wouldn't fill it all the way to the tip top. I would actually only put a little bit and allow them to have success with just a little bit. And so as the child becomes more able, they might move from being able to pour their own milk or water to being able to water the plants. And so just this idea that it's a smaller pitcher with a smaller handle, finer motor skills required, and this little spout for hand-eye coordination. And so just the idea that there's a progression to the skills that we're working on, and we have to think about how do you take this big goal that you might have in mind, and in this case it was getting this child to eat independently, and how do we pare it down into smaller activities with a limited number of steps so that it's easy. And that's why I really enjoyed starting with something whole like the beans or the gems that can be, easily scooped, because then the only step there is scoop and drop. And it's very simple for the child to remember. And then they get into the habit of, all right, and this is how we do it. And then it's predictable and it's comforting. And so there's a lot of benefit to that. And then, of course, the repetitiveness of the activity. And so, the repetitiveness of the activity, for example, is if you set out a bowl of, let's say, those beans or rice or whatever, you want to measure out your scoops. So maybe, and maybe this is like the type A personality in me, 5 scoops. So as an adult, it's going to be it will be 5 scoops for you, but it might be 10 scoops for the child. And so we make it so that it's just enough repetition in that one sequence of activities that they just might want to do it again. And so then they can repeat the entire activity. And I love how it just promotes um, practicing that same skill. And so by providing similar opportunities with different utensils, it's also quite important. And then, of course, there's this personal benefit, this sense of pride, of accomplishment. And so for this child that I keep sharing with you or sharing with you about, just this sense of pride, when he finally was able to take his spoon and put it in his yogurt and bring it to his mouth, and he says, Miss Stacy, I did it. It's like your heart melts, because that even though to you as the adult, as the teacher or the parent, it's not a big deal. But to this child, he's been working on it for months, figuring out, how to do this and how to do that and how to make the progress, and then to like actually do it and not dump it on himself or get it on the table is a big deal. And so, just recognizing that accomplishment and allowing that sense of pride to really shine through is so, so great. And then, of course, providing opportunities for success. And so I feel like um, children children have challenges. Children have different kinds of challenges. Everyone has their own individual experience. But the more that we can do to help them feel confident about what they can do, the better job we can do building upon that. And so I would say, to those of you out there who have struggled, this school year or in the last year, or who have children at home that are struggling, or children in your classroom that are struggling, find the glimmer of hope, honestly. Because if you can find that little thing that is going well, that thing that is so right, you can build on that. And the things that can be created from that one really positive thing are pretty incredible. And so these opportunities are going to promote some good confidence building for all of us, I hope. Next slide, please. All right, so 5 everyday practical life experiences. So I know we discussed some of these a bit already, and I would say that the things to know about them are they are basic. You might not be able to do these in your school or childcare setting at this time, depending on, whatever regulations are existing at this time based on the current environment. But these are things that are great ideas for you to share with your families. And so, even if you can't do them at school, they can still happen at home. And so, these are great things to share, not just with new families, but with any family. So, I do know that one of the things I am hearing a lot from parents and teachers is um, these kids are acting helpless. And when I think about why is that happening, because I have seen glimmers of that in my own home as well, it is because they are feeling some of the change that is happening, some of this new worldness that we're all kind of living in and kind of working through. And so, this whole idea that if we are able to encourage our children to do simple tasks on their own, then, like I said in the last slide, we can build upon that. And so, um, for families that are looking to kind of reduce this helplessness piece, encouraging the children to be a part of the getting ready for the day process is huge. So I know that in my own home, what we say is, okay, to be ready for breakfast, you have to do three things. What are the three things we need to do? And so, encouraging the child to remember what are the three things that they need to do, and then also do those things, right? So, maybe it's the child needs to use the bathroom, get dressed, and brush their hair. And so, by making the different parts of that process attainable and accessible for the child, they can have a higher likelihood of success for being able to lead those activities for themselves. And so I would definitely say the hair and teeth brushing falls right in that category. Eating with utensils. I know in our home we have like a little bucket, and the bucket has, all these different kinds of utensils in it. And so the children are asked to choose their utensils before they sit down at the table. Okay, for dinner tonight, you're going to need a fork and a spoon. Get yours, please, and bring them to the table. And so not only are they using their utensils because they're supposed to, but they're using their utensils because they have a vested interest, right? And they've chosen the one that they want, and they feel proud that they were, one, able to access it, and two, able to actually do it for themselves. Some of these other ideas, he used to love doing them in the classroom, preparing snacks, preparing fruits. These are really great. I loved brainstorming with the kids. I would say, we're going to be doing some special food prep activities next week. What kinds of fruits or vegetables should we prepare? And then sometimes we would make fruit salad. Sometimes we would make like little veggie plates. It kind of just depends on what is accessible and possible. And I do know that with some of the restrictions right now, at least at my children's school, they are able to slice bananas and peel an orange because they are individualized, because they have a wrapper, a natural peel, a natural peel. And so those are great activities for kids too. I did introduce my children to orange juicing over the weekend, and gosh, it was such a hit. They loved it so much. I'm not sure what they loved more. Squeezing. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. I was going to say probably the squeezing part.
How did you know?
Just thinking about it myself, I won't lie. I was just going, what would I
Oh
enjoy,
gosh.
and then sit in that the same time too. So I'm going to let you go, keep going here. I just want to give you a time check. We're just a couple of minutes away from the end, but I'm sure you're
Oh,
good. So
perfect.
no
Oh,
worries.
thank you so much. Awesome. So, sorry about that. Yes. So the squeezing part. So we had an actual orange juicer that, like a little manual, like a total manual one, that they could take the orange, an orange half, and do the squeezing part. But when my son realized he didn't even need that, he could just squeeze the orange and the juice would come out. Oh my gosh, he was in seventh heaven. And then when he had the opportunity to drink it from a little glass, oh my gosh, he says, "But mama, I want more." He said, "But you drank it all." So now I know we need to do orange juicing on the weekends. So I think that it's just a matter of, being a little bit creative right now and figuring out what is possible and what is not possible. And so, it's possible that peeling an orange is totally feasible, and allowing children the opportunity to take, one half of an orange and only squeeze that one half themselves without a juicer. And then maybe it would be, acceptable in some childcare settings. And then, of course, dressing oneself, which I feel like we've already discussed a little bit today. Next slide, please. All right. So now I know you're wondering, Stacey, where do we start? And here's the thing, you have to take a look at who you have in your space and what goals you're trying to meet. And so, what you want to do is observe. You're going to figure out where to meet the child wherever that child is. So um, I know that once a month, my team and I would get together and we would have a grid. And the grid had the name of each child, and there would be like a goal for each of the children. And then we would discuss as a team how we were going to meet the needs of that goal and what that meant for us as the teachers. And so it allowed us the opportunity to figure out like who is struggling with fine motor, who's not quite writing yet, who is having like a lightness of touch issue and they're not writing exactly with enough pressure. So they need to continue strengthening their hands. And so just kind of evaluating for yourselves what you observe and then go from there. So you're going to identify strengths, like I had mentioned before, and you're going to build upon that. So when you think about, the child who is just learning to use their hands and they've got that Play-Doh, it's this idea that, okay, if they've got the Play-Doh and they can do the squeezing part, maybe they can't pull the lid off, but maybe they could do a twist. And so just kind of working with what you have and figuring out how to make that the most beneficial. And then, of course, pairing something that is challenging with something that is strong. So by doing that, you provide children with that boost of confidence. They have a sense of like, I was able to do that and I'm still working on whatever the next thing is, and letting them know, yeah, we're all practicing something and that's okay. And then, of course, a list of interests. I love doing this. And so to draw the child in, what you can do is you can write a list, a physical list on a sheet of paper of things that interest the child. And by doing that, you can then pull from that list and bring those things to the table. And I find that to be so successful. Children feel like if it's written down, I've been heard, right? And then you can reference that list at a later date, and you can even say to the child, um, I knew that you really liked dinosaurs, so I added them to the sandbox, and maybe the sandbox isn't the challenging part. Not playing with the sand is challenging, but maybe opening the sandbox is what's challenging. And by adding something new in there, it's going to encourage the child to really want to try and get in there that much more. And then, of course, one person versus two-person activities. I'm not going to go into that too much. I would say it depends on the environment that you're in and what guidelines you're having to follow. But just this idea that some activities are really only meant for one child, where some activities could be for two children or more. And so just being mindful of that. Next slide, please. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to have been able to be here to share this information with you. I hope you will check out my website, homedayhero.com. I have 70, yes, 70 free articles readily available, lots of ideas. I do offer some consultation seminars. I do teach reading camp, and I have some other things that are available for purchase. So check me out on Linktree and you'll get all the information that you need. Thank you again for joining me, and I hope to see you all soon.
Stacey, that was absolutely fantastic. I know we're kind of a little tight on time, so folks, we might go a minute or two order, but just so you know, we'd love to see, there were so many great things coming through the chat, especially when you're going through like some of the sensory things that you used to do with the children in your classroom and what you still do at home. We'd love to see those. Please do tag us on social. We'd love to see them, of course, appropriately. We don't want anybody getting in any trouble with any children or anything like that. But let's ask one question before we do jump into wrap up. And for me, I definitely, this resonates a little bit with me because my nephew is very much someone who he likes to use his hands, but he does not like to get dirty. Any sort of tips or tricks around those children who are maybe a little adverse to sensory experiences? Maybe it's not their favorite. Maybe they really don't like different types of textures. What would you recommend, Stacey?
I would say I actually use kinetic sand for that exact reason.
Ooh.
And so what I have is kinetic sand. I don't have the loose sand
Mhm.
because my daughter doesn't like it in between her fingers. My son manages to get it everywhere. And so we use kinetic sand, and that has been great. I would say, I'm trying to think, like we made cloud dough once. And I would say for children that have sensory based issues, cloud dough is not a good option because cloud dough tends to be cold and squishy.
Yep.
Like even colder than Play-Doh usually would be. And so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. And it usually leaves like a residue. Um, I'm trying to think what other good things for sensory. I mean, beans. I mean, I had a number of kids where like we just needed a bean bin. And there was a child and he would literally open the bin and we had it set out on like a little circle rug and he would just run his hands through it. And it just felt so soothing on his hands. I think it was something like kidney beans or like some, great northern beans, like some big white, maybe lima beans, but just that idea of just like
Mm,
allowing it to run over. Um, I don't know. For kids with sensory, sometimes it's better for them to be able to watch. So there are things
yeah.
that instead of like physically get into something like sand or Play-Doh, it really depends on the child. But
Yeah.
I love those like oozy timers. I don't know if you've ever seen those oozy
Yes.
timers. And then like sometimes kids will take their finger and like trace the ooze as it goes down. Or even water timers, water timers, like one or two different colors of water. And then as they go down, the child can take their finger and trace it. And so it gives you a different kind of experience. It's not
Mm,
exactly the same as some of these things, but you really have to know the child with the challenge to know what they're not going to go for. Because there are definitely
totally.
kids that are like, "Don't make me touch Play-Doh."
There,
Right?
and then there's the kid who would bathe in it, it's
Absolutely.
so, I love it. A couple of folks as well have already said on the chat too, you can do so many amazing things with a Ziploc bag.
Oh
As
yes.
it also keeps the mess down, which is fabulous. But on the same side, it's reusable too, so which is absolutely fantastic. Stacey, it's been fabulous. I'm so happy we've had you back. The crew here has been blowing up the chat this entire time. Before we do wrap up, any words of advice, happy thoughts you want to leave us with today?
Oh my gosh.
That's the
It's so
hard
funny
question.
because we always get to this point and I'm like, what could I say today? Honestly, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so glad we were able to do this. And something to think about is, and I think I said this last time, as a teacher, as someone that works with children, you make a difference in the lives of children every single day. Keep doing the hard work, keep doing the good work, and stay in touch.
Well said. Stacey, thank you so much. Folks, if you had a question and we weren't able to get to it, no, we weren't, please do pop over to our Facebook page, our Circle Time group, and Stacey will be there and she'll definitely give you an answer. Maybe Stacey, if you want to drop in a couple of tips that you'd mentioned today of items and things like that, or pop in a picture, that would be fantastic, maybe. Up to you though, of course. Let's jump in to wrap up. Thank you again, Stacey, so much. Folks, if you are with us for the first time and you've never heard of us, we would love for you to learn a little bit more about Hi Mama. And so if you please want to chat with us on our side, please tell them that myself or Kaya sent you. We'd love for you to learn more about how you can use this in your classroom. If you're a director owner, how you can use this in your center. We'd love for you to please take some time and see if Hi Mom would be a good fit for you. And then the variety of things, whether you're on the admin side, you're looking for something like communication with your families or billing, things like that, or if you are a teacher and you're looking for something to help communicate once again with your families, but making sure children are hitting those milestones and you're tracking all those fantastic skills that they're achieving within your classroom. We'd love to chat with you. So please do. To note as well, there's more than just our app behind us. Please, we have podcasts. Stacey was actually on our podcast. We're going to share that with you. Tons of activities on the website, our blog posts, Julie on the support team, everybody there, they're there to help you out. We'd love to have you be part of the Hi Mama family and how you'd like to do it. As well, we are a B certified corporation, so we're out making change. Next week, folks. Okay, many of you have said this, just want to make sure to clarify the certificate and the show notes will be sent out early next week. So please do keep your eyes out in your email. They will be coming to you. So please don't be shy as well. Check out, Kai's just posted the link in the chat, but it's blog.himama.com/category/webinar. You can find everything there, all of our recordings and everything. If you weren't able to potentially even stay around, you'll find the end of the webinar there. Next week, we're talking math and reading. I'm very excited to be welcoming Stuart on next week. He's going to be absolutely amazing. What a great segue into into him talking a little bit more about reading and math from fine motor. I think that they go really well together. So I'm super excited to be hosting him next week. So please do register. We'd love to have you. As well, follow us on social media. Kaya's there, folks. If you have questions, she's there to help you out. Instagram, be part of our Facebook page. There's also our Circle Time page, as well as you can check out our podcasts. They come out on a weekly basis. So Kaya says say hi to her, folks. She'd love it. Once again, folks, thank you. I'm sorry we're a couple minutes over today, but it was well worth the time spent. Thank you for joining us this Thursday. Hopefully you stay well, you stay happy, you stay safe. Kaya, did I miss anything?
No, you got it all. Stacey, thank you so much for joining us again. It was such a great, informative webinar, and there were so many fantastic ideas in the chat. I would love to see some of those ideas in action. It's hard for me to vision that. I've been out of the classroom for 6 years. And there's so many new cool things out there, like the water beads I was chatting to
I love water
people
beads.
with. Yeah. So show us all your amazing ideas. You can pop it on social media and just give us a tag, and we would love to see it and share some ideas with our community.
All right, folks, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.